All right, Safe House. Today we're going to be talking about what if your forever seems like it's not going to last forever.
Right, it's temporary.
There's something gone wrong and we don't know what it is.
Right.
If you want to find out how to recover, stay tuned. We're going to be talking about it in this next episode of Safe House. Be right back. Hello there, Safe House family.
What's going on, Safe House? Whoop, whoop.
Season 4 is here.
What? We're in season 4?
We're in season 4.
Man, some stuff get canceled, and some stuff don't even get picked up again.
Well, yeah, ain't nobody picked us up. That's why we ain't got canceled.
Right, we keep picking ourselves up.
Right. The only
we
way
keep renewing our own contract.
Right, as long as we can't get canceled as long as we keep making videos.
Right. That's true. I like that. That's true. We be renewing ourselves.
Right, renewing ourselves. So.
It's like, y'all don't like it, too bad. We on. I like it.
Yep. So remember, family, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications so that you'll know when we are publishing content on topics. And looky here. We're going to be talking about when things just don't look like they're going to last. Ain't that something? We talk about forever people all the time, and we talk about the cheat codes for singles, and we talk about, folks being together and what they can do to kind of maximize their opportunities for longevity and to last forever. But the reality is sometimes this stuff don't look like it's going to last.
And sometimes it don't last forever.
Sometimes it don't last forever.
Yeah.
And sometimes we've seen it break apart and seem like it's dead, dry.
Yeah. And then
but
it
then
comes
something
back together.
brings it back to life, miraculously. So
I like what you're saying, though, because I think the with forever, so when we say our forever person, I kind of look at it like is that God is saying that that's our forever person until death do us part.
Exactly.
You know? And so that person, so like if, when things come to challenge whether or not we still believe it's that forever person, I think we have to go back and begin to ask ourselves to be like, okay, well, what did God say? Because we always talk about how you need that foundation. Mm-hmm. And when your foundation is your belief that God said that this is your person, this is who he made for you, then I think it, not that it's not hard to come back, but like you said, but you just know in your heart of hearts that God doesn't lie and this is really your forever person.
Yeah, and unfortunately, too, we don't realize how hard it is to have a Christian worldview around these things. And we're just, every day kind of what's put into our minds, even from people we trust, even in certain spiritual environments, you have to really question whether or not the worldview is really Christian, right?
Yeah.
Because if we really have a real Christian worldview, we recognize that God can make dead things live again.
He can,
right? And most of all, that our relationship, whether we are married now or we're on the path of marriage, that relationship is an earthly example of Christ's relationship to the church, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that union has purpose, right? That there's some design, there's a mission, there's a goal from your union that the kingdom of God wishes to capitalize on, exploit, all of that, show off. All of that,
absolutely,
right? You just imagine the enemy. I mean, God showing the enemy, like, look at here, look at what else? Look at another miracle that was created, right? Look at another generation. And so when you think about it in those terms, in terms of what we're doing, represents something much bigger than us. Then it becomes less easy. I'm not going to say it becomes, hard. It becomes less easy to decide. My forever is not forever anymore. But if I go into it without that worldview, okay, I'm here to make you happy, you here to make me happy, we getting together because we're attracted to each other, then what happens is as those things start to change, because they will change, I'm not the same dude I was when we met 30 years ago, right? I didn't have a white beard. I wasn't a black Santa Claus back then.
Sorry.
Right. I was a much more youthful dude, right?
I'm rubbing his leg in case y'all wonder.
We're going to have to shut the cameras off.
We're going to try to behave ourselves this 4th season. I can't make no promises because we already cutting up. So
Already. And you see who started it, right?
I'm a starter.
I was being spiritual, right? I was talking about the Bible.
Oh my God.
I was talking about God. And she went right to
Jesus, help me. I did.
But she jumped right. You see what happens.
Oh,
Yep.
I really did that too.
You
Oh
know.
my God.
But it's okay. It's okay. The marriage bed is undefiled. That's biblical too, right?
Jeez, Louisa.
But it's all right. It's all right. No, no, no. But as I was saying, it's just, it's really hard
It
because,
is. Yeah.
you have these little slip ups, and even in the Bible, if those that read the Bible, one of the things that Paul was constantly doing to the churches was sending them letters about how they had to take on this new world view
Mm-hmm.
in what they're
Yeah.
doing, and how they struggled with it, and how they kept blending their old worldview
Mm-hmm.
with the new worldview, and they created conflict and tension. So we're no different.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. You know, I think whenever I think about, like you said, forever people, I think one of the things, because we talked about what does it feel like when you start to think like, okay, maybe you're a forever person. Isn't you a forever person? Because obviously when we take vows, we're thinking that, it's going to last forever.
Hmm.
Outside of a spouse, passing away prematurely or whatever, you still, when you take your vows, you still think that it's going to be for a very long time, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, and maybe it was just me. There are things that happen in marriage that sometimes just make you feel like you like, man, did I really hear God? Is this
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
my person? Is this my forever person? And I feel like if you don't quickly deal with those thoughts,
Yeah.
then then you have to, then that won't be your forever person because you would talk yourself out of
Absolutely.
your forever person.
Well, let's deal with that for a second,
Yeah.
right? So the word that comes to my mind is the diagnostic process, right? So
Yeah.
when we start to say something is a problem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's many facets to that prism, to that diamond, right?
Mhm.
That of problem, right?
Yeah.
Because the problem could be an us problem.
Yeah.
It could be a me problem. It
True.
could be an environmental problem. It can be an expectation problem.
Right. External problem, like
Yeah.
something just happens.
Something happened,
Tragedy
right?
happens.
Right. The
Yeah.
death of a child,
Yeah.
a sick
Yeah.
parent,
Absolutely.
any of those things, the
Yeah.
circumstances around us,
Yeah.
right? So we have to step back and say, what is the diagnosis process
Yeah.
for us to really say there is a problem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I really like that you said that you called it like a diagnostic, like a diagnosis, because um it's that acknowledgement that,
Yeah.
okay, like you said, being able to determine if something is really wrong. It's like when you go to the doctor, like the doctor gives you a diagnosis,
Yeah.
because you feel like something is hurting or something is off.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's how we feel too.
Mhm.
Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm in pain, but you feel like, okay, I know my body,
Right.
something's off. So let
Mhm.
me just go. Let me just get it checked out. And then if they come back and nothing is wrong, then that's terrific. But you just there's something on the inside that just makes you feel like, okay, this is off. And I think that happens in marriage too.
Yeah.
That you feel like, okay, we're off, we're not communicating, whatever, it's just not the way that it used to be.
Yeah.
And so like you said, you do have to have this diagnostic, to really kind of address like, okay, well, why am I off?
Yeah. And sometimes the diagnostic can be a self-diagnostic,
Yeah.
right? Because like when you get a cold, you don't necessarily need a MRI to
Right.
tell you that you have a cold, right?
I just have to say Andre does.
I'm a hypochondriac.
Okay, he's a hypochondriac.
I get, everything's
it's so funny you'd use that example.
everything's gonna kill me,
Right.
Everything, the universe is trying to kill me, right? That's what I believe. So
You're like, boy, you just got a cold.
I got the rarest.
Feel me, I'm like,
Whenever
okay.
I get sick, I have the
Right.
rarest of diseases,
He does.
in my mind, right?
I'm like,
So,
let that internet go.
yeah, and the internet is worse because it's just like, oh, you got this symptom, you got that symptom.
Yep.
Oh, you have unknown disease that nobody's ever had. In fact, we're gonna call it Allen disease because it's you the first one to ever get it.
But what's really powerful
Yeah.
about that is and like even acknowledging that it's like, okay, am I a hypochondriac in my marriage?
Oh, yeah.
Do I see everything? It's like, oh, this is death.
There are those, right?
yeah.
And we'll talk about those in a second. But I was going to say part of the diagnosis too. After you get past that simple, okay, this is beyond a cold, you may need to bring in somebody else to do
Yeah.
the diagnosis
That
for
is
you,
true.
right? Whether it's someone who is, and kind of like in the medical field, right? You have like the the nurses, you have the pharmacist who just
Yeah.
hands out the medicine, and you go there and they can kind of help diagnose you, or you have
Right.
to escalate and go to maybe a nurse
Practitioner,
practitioner,
yeah.
and then they can diagnose you. Then you have to go to a physician assistant, but then
Yeah.
you may have to go to a doctor or a
Right. Or a
specialist,
specialist, right.
But
Absolutely.
there's an escalating path
Yeah.
of help that you need.
Yeah.
If this thing is not resolving itself,
Yeah.
getting better, you're not
Yeah.
reaching resolution,
Yeah.
rather than jumping to a conclusion right off the bat.
Yeah. That's
Here's
good.
what's wrong.
That
Yeah.
is so good. Yeah. I'm like getting help right now because I think everything is a big problem. Maybe I'm the hypochondriac in the marriage. I'm like, oh God, we get to, you're like, no, babe, it's not that serious.
Right.
Because
right.
I think everything is big.
Yeah, yeah.
And
when you're going through it, everything can seem big.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in pain, it's hard to diagnose yourself because
that's
you're
true
in pain,
too. Yeah,
right?
that is true.
And
that is
so
very true.
you need somebody from the outside to say, yeah, I know it hurts really bad.
Yeah.
But all you really got is an infected mosquito bump, right?
Yeah.
It'll go
Yeah,
away on
that
its
is true.
own.
Right. Yeah, no, that's real.
It hurts,
Yeah.
let's give you something to ease the symptom.
Yeah.
But you don't need full-on surgery. You don't need a
Yeah.
full-on treatment. You don't need any of that, right?
Yeah.
You just need something to cure this symptom.
Yeah,
right?
no, that's real talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, like you mentioned, am I a hypochondriac, right? And so what does hypochondriac behavior look like when we're talking about what's wrong in our situation, or my forever situation may be broken?
Mm-hmm.
I may have an expectation of what my relationship should look like,
Yeah.
right? And unfortunately, we're in this society right now, this period right now, where we have these lists, right? He has to be 6 feet tall, make 6 figures, have the bodily dimensions. She has to have a snatched waist. And
36, 24, 36.
Yeah,
What a winning
36,
hand.
24, 36 is out there.
Yeah, I know. That's
ain't-
true. That is the Commodores
that's
from like the 70s.
It is, but that's a stick
Right.
compared to some of these,
That's true.
Instagram models out
No,
here.
that's
right?
real talk, yeah.
And unfortunately, regular women don't look like
Don't
that.
look like that, right. Right.
And they ain't gonna look like that forever, right?
That's
It's
true.
like
Right.
they may look
Not forever.
They may look like that through
Which is
their
why
20s.
you trying to get rid of them,
Right,
because
right.
they
But-
don't look like that no
But
more.
I create this expectation that unless she's completely snatched in the waist and,
Yeah.
got the bubble behind, or all these other kind of things, then, I'm not satisfied in my relationship. The same thing. It's just like, okay, a woman can be like, man, I married this guy and he's always been this way, but then I see the man of God at church and I'm so impressed with his spirituality and his
Yeah.
singing and his worship.
Yeah.
I want my man to be just like him. Well, that's
Yeah.
not the man you married, and it's not
That's
a
true.
red alert on a problem in the relationship. Your expectation has changed.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, we start to reformulate or redraw
Yeah.
what we think our forever person is. That you didn't fall in love with that person.
Yeah,
That's not who that person was.
Yeah.
Because I always feel like at the core, the person who you fall in love with, they're still there.
They're still there somewhere.
Yeah, they're still there
Right,
somewhere.
yeah. Things may change. We all change a
Right,
little bit over
yeah.
time, but the person you fell in love with, the core of who they were, is
Yeah.
still there.
Yeah,
And, we often speak in hyperbole when we're upset.
we do.
And
I know
it's
I
like,
do.
It's like,
Yeah.
they never do this. They
Yeah.
always do so and so, and I don't know if I love them anymore. I don't know. Well, wait a minute. 2 years ago when I talked, you was on cloud 9. This
Yeah.
was the only person for you. In fact, when all of your family was advising you to go slow, you was like, "No, we're gonna go fast
Yeah.
because this is
Right.
the one I
Right.
love.
Right.
This is God sent them to me.
Right.
They rode in
Oh,
on a cloud.
right, they did, right. Hello.
Yeah. And now, 2 years later,
Now
when
God was wrong.
God was wrong, right?
Because
Right.
that's really, I like that you use that as an example, because that's really what you're saying.
Yeah,
that
God was
God
wrong.
lied.
God was wrong.
Right.
Yeah. And, I interpreted it wrong or something
Right.
like that. It's like,
I
no.
must not have heard that correctly.
But
now
I'm-
you can't hear.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I'm telling you, and this is what makes longevity occur in relationships, because what's going to happen, no matter what state you meet them in, that state is going to shift.
It's going to shift.
Right? So
Yeah.
if you meet them and y'all rich, what's going to happen is y'all going to have a poor season. Y'all may get back to rich.
Yeah, that's true.
But you're going to have a poor
Right,
season, right?
yeah.
You may start out poor and then you become wealthy,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Or then
true.
you become poor again, or whatever, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
know that your relationship is going to go in seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I come up with very superficial requirements for who I'm going to be with, well, he's got to be making 6 figures. Well, what happens when he gets laid off or his business collapses?
Yeah.
or all the things he was doing and the lifestyle that he had, he can't keep it up, right?
Right.
You know, is he still the man, right? Does he still have the stuff that made him rich the first
Yeah.
time? And you just need to give him time to do it again.
Yeah.
You know?
But I, like you said, I just think this is such an important conversation because, like I said, now some people's stuff is, like you said, is really broken.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, you do have to get, like in this space of where you're diagnosing it
Yeah.
correctly.
Right.
Because some of it can just be conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Versus like some people really do have real issues in their marriages that break them.
Oh yeah,
So we're definitely not saying that. Some people have, they're broken because just of behaviors. It could be drug addictions, it could be any kind of addiction, gambling addictions.
Yeah.
Those things are like serious trauma stressors on marriages. And like you said, like the death of a child, the death of a parent. Those things they break everybody.
Yeah, and let's also be real, right? We have a bad season, and we're not mature enough to keep our feelings about the other person from our circle, our family, right?
Yeah.
So then we portray, I portray you to all of my friends and family that you're just this evil old Jezebel woman, right? We fall back in love.
Right.
And now the fallout of them, then your family looking at me sideways, my family looking at you sideways, and nobody's in our circle because they believe it's doomed, right? And so now that creates stress and pressure on our relationship.
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So no, that's why the diagnosis is so important because it could be a mixture of things. It could be one thing. It could be many things.
Yeah.
Either way, you need a process to really break down what's at the root of why we're going through and why are we getting this feeling that this is not going to last forever.
Right. Because I feel like I said, once you get the diagnosis, until you get the diagnosis, I'll put it like that, you can't really move forward.
You can't.
Because now you're just like applying all these, you're trying to apply all these different things and wondering why it's not working because that's not what's really wrong.
Right.
With what's going on, and so it's kind of like just being sick. It's like, like some people can go to the doctor. It's like, man, we've been to like 50 doctors and I still don't know what's wrong with me. And then by the time you finally get the right diagnosis, now they're like, okay, now let's see what we can do. And so now you start to feel better.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the same thing in marriage when you start to feel like, okay, that maybe this isn't going to be forever. And a big part of recognizing that is saying, okay, what's really wrong?
Yeah.
What's causing this? Because I think once you can really address that, then you can move to solutions. Like to me, solutions are accountability and responsibility. But I don't think you can even you can't really ask somebody to be accountable or responsible if there's no real acknowledgement or they just don't know what's really wrong.
Yeah. And you have some people that have come up in families and situations where they ignore problems, right? Their way of dealing with problems is to not deal with problems, right? I've known people to do that. Oh, that's not a big deal. We ain't going to worry about it. We ain't going to sweat the small stuff. We ain't going to do whatever. And in the meanwhile, you have this festering thing that's underneath the surface. It's constantly, it's deteriorating against, it's starting to stink. It's causing problems. But because we don't want to deal with it or go through the tension of working through it, because it's going to create an uncomfortable tension, it eventually, metastasizes to the point where it breaks us apart.
Absolutely. So like you said, it's, we're obviously going to talk about, this a lot more. Throughout the season, but I like that we're just tackling just like the first part of, like you said, because to me, that's the most important part of when you start to feel like, man, you know what, this may not be my, forever person. And so one of the scriptures it's kind of like what you talked about. When we're stressed, our communication can either help or hinder our ability even to really kind of figure out, what the problem is. So in Ephesians 4:29, it says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And I love that part of the scripture because,
Mm.
like you said, when we're stressed and we feel like, we're off and whatever, what normally comes out of our mouths?
Yeah, I can tell you, we're looking to defend,
Yes, absolutely.
attack, or blame.
Right.
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 This ain't right because you didn't.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
You're always doing blah 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 to me.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
hmm
If you hadn't have done so and so, then we would be.
Right.
You
And
know.
if those are the
Yeah.
conversations that we're having,
Yeah.
it's easy for me to now believe that, okay, this isn't my forever person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the way that the conversation is going. And so once again, like you said, it's having that ability. I just love that you said the diagnosis, because the diagnosis means I now have to step back,
Hmm.
before I'm ready to be like, okay, yeah, we're done or whatever. Like you said, what's the real stressors?
Yeah.
What's really going on? Because whatever is going on with me is going on with you.
Hmm.
Even though I'm probably feeling it the most,
Hmm.
it's like when we're married, we're one.
Hmm.
And so that becomes that space too, where, like you said, where both people are learning. Where if I'm the one that's going through it, now you've got to lean into some other fruits, like, okay, let me be kind, let me be gentle, let me be compassionate, let me be all those things because she's going through.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, like I said, I think, as we continue this conversation about what that looks like, I think it's really going to help some people, because even this has like really helped me. Like
Mm.
you said, just being able to diagnose, what's going on. I mean, that was one of the reasons too why I decided to go to therapy,
Yeah.
because you couldn't help me,
Yeah. Hmm.
and I knew that something was off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had to make the decision just so we both could be okay,
Yeah.
you know, to say, okay, you know what? It's time for me to now, like you said, to go and talk to somebody,
Yeah. Yeah.
and figure out what's going on with me. And I feel like as a result of that, we have gotten better.
Yeah.
I've
Absolutely.
gotten better,
Yeah.
and we have gotten better,
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so, like I said, I just feel like as we continue to talk about this, like I said, I really believe it's going to help some people.
Yeah, I think too, just to add on to that, there's the diagnosis. And I think too, there has to be a mind frame or a mindset
hmm
when you go into this, right?
hmm
So when we get to the place where it's just like, okay, forever's not looking like forever,
hmm
right? Um, there's a phrase out in the world that says when the only solution you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail,
hmm
right? So if your only solution in your toolkit is I don't like it, I walk away, right?
Right.
Then that's the hammer I'm going to pull out
Yeah.
for this nail,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't like my friends, I walk away. I
Yeah.
don't like my family, I walk away. I
Yeah.
don't like this job, I walk away. I don't
Yeah.
like the situation, I walk away,
Yeah.
right? Versus having, shifting to a restorative mindset
hmm
that says, all right, we're going through a thing. I believe it may be a them problem, but how do I make it a us problem?
Yeah.
Right?
That's good. Yeah.
How do we get to a place of restoration, and then having a vision? Because this is vision,
Yeah.
right?
That goes
Vision
back to,
vision is
yeah.
when you can mentally visualize something that doesn't exist
hmm
today. Having a vision of whatever situation we're in now, we're on the other side and
hmm
we're healed and restored,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if those things aren't entering into your mind when the conflict happens, and it's more about fix him or her wrong,
Right.
me get
Which
away,
is usually that's
which
what
is
it
usually
is.
the case.
Yeah.
And
Which is
and
usually the
and
case.
and I'm not sitting here on the high horse, right? It's
Right.
like, I'm the king of,
Oh yeah.
when
Let's hit the
please,
eject button.
yeah. You cross
Right.
me,
Yeah.
I will bury you.
Right.
I will put flowers on your grave, put dirt on you, go home, eat macaroni and cheese, and then you are X'd out,
Right.
right? I
Yeah.
have formally
Yeah. You
funeralized
don't go back to the
and
cemetery.
repast you. And I
Right.
don't even go back to the cemetery
Right.
to visit,
Yeah.
right? That is a
hmm
closed off section of my life. I had to learn how not to use that as a tool
hmm
for people,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't have any restorative
hmm Right.
property in it. That has finality in it.
But what would happen if God said, "Go back to the cemetery"?
Yeah. So now today, to the individual I am today, I'm more than willing to go
Yeah.
back to the
Yeah.
cemetery, right? Because
Yeah.
one, I've seen God move in some really wild ways, right? Around what I thought was dead. So I know he can do it. So I want to go to the cemetery to see what's going to happen.
Yeah,
right?
that's real talk. Yeah.
You know,
can dead things live again?
Yeah. And then two, I'm at a place right now where I can look back on my past and I know that in my wake, there are people that are damaged, there are potential long-term relationships that I sabotaged, right? And there are situations that I didn't act the best in. So if there's an opportunity for me to go back and start to restore and make recompense, if there's a chance, I would do it. You would
do it, yeah.
Right. So that's the mind frame I'm in now, right? 10 years ago, no, no, Gangsta Dre was like, no, you cross me, you out of here, right?
But I also love that once again, that, like you said, 10 years ago, that wasn't you. But it also shows that it's a process of where God wants to take us. Yeah. Because once again, God's like, no, you got to learn how to do this part. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing in marriage. He's like, but this is because God doesn't change his mind.
Right.
When God says this is your person, unless God takes them home. Right. Then if this person is, this is, especially if you believe in your heart that this is still your person. Yeah. Because we're not saying that, we know divorce happens.
And we know bad stuff happens.
We know bad stuff happens, and some folks you don't really need to be with.
Right. If you're around some narcissistic individual or you getting your tail beat or something like that, get out of there. Right. I'll come over there with my tools and help you get out of there.
Absolutely.
We're more talking about these places where you have this sort of tension and discomfort and missed expectations and it's like all of a sudden we're in conflict and we don't know, we still love each other, but what's weird, it's that other place.
I think that's really key too. Yeah. Like we still love each other, but we can't live together. Yeah. We can't be together because this thing that's here right now, if we continue to stay with each other, we're going to kill each other.
We're going to kill each other.
We're going to kill each other.
We love each other.
One of us is not going to make it out.
Right.
Whether it's, I'm not saying like literally killing you, but it's killing you because once again, it's stressful, now you're sick. I mean, it can kill you in other ways. And so sometimes, like you said, you just got to be like, okay, like you said, do you bury it and take it to the cemetery? Or do you just be like, okay, we just need to separate, we need to be apart or whatever. And what I love is that we're going to be able to talk to a couple where, I mean, they were dead. I mean, it was like at the cemetery, they wasn't going, no flowers, like not visiting. Yeah. I mean, like good and dead. Like
the grave had weeds on it.
Yeah. The you could tell nobody was coming back and checking on the grave site. Yeah.
And we're talking about not the next day, the next month, we're talking about years later. Yeah, years later. After the bones had no more flesh on them, right? They were bone dry, white, bleached, right? Skeleton, right? And God put his hand on that thing and restored it, right? And it's going to be an intriguing story because not only do you see how God did the miracle, you're going to see the work that had to occur. Right? Yeah. It was faith in action. Yeah. Right?
Faith without works is dead. I mean, that's the true, like I said, that's a good scripture to put on that. Yeah.
And also a story about having the right focus, right? Because when things want to live again, we have to shift our focus to the Father.
Yeah, that's
and
real.
not on the thing that we're trying to win back. Yeah. But we don't want to give away the story before the story's told. Right. You're going to love this couple. We look forward. So Safehouse, we just look forward to what this season has to offer. We're going to be talking more about recovery and restoration and getting back together and things breaking down, but how do we make it back to a place? Because that is the tool for longevity.
Yeah, absolutely,
and we believe we were put here to make sure marriages are built to last. Yeah. Relationships are built to last. So cheat code single folks, you might want to watch this because it'll learn you when you're out.
That's the old folks say.
Right,
you're going to learn you.
You're going to learn you. So when you're out there seeking your person, you have the right mindset and mind frame so that when the things happen, you'll have a tool to reach into the toolbox and say, you know what, I think we can work on this.
We can work on this, And I also think like you said, it's a good cheat code because you have to ask yourself even before you get married. Yeah. Do I have the ability, capacity to do that? Right, and that's just, those aren't the kind of things that you talk about a lot. Yeah. But you got to really ask yourself, do I have the capacity to handle that.
Yeah, to restore, right?
Yeah,
Can I handle
yeah.
conflict and want to restore?
Right, and want to
Can
restore.
right? Can I
Yeah,
handle conflict? Can I take a them problem and make it a us problem,
right.
right?
Yeah,
Because that's what the vows,
yeah.
when we
That's
talk
what the
about
vows are.
better or worse,
Yeah.
sickness and health,
Mm-hmm.
that means you problem becomes us problem.
Yeah.
There are no more
Yeah.
you problems or me problems.
That's real. Yeah.
So Safehouse, remember to please like, share, and subscribe. And if you like this content, you like this discussions, please give us some commentary below. What say you about this whole concept of dead things living again, about being restored, about coming back together when forever doesn't seem like forever?
Yeah.
So we want to hear from you. Remember, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications.
Hit the bell.
And be on the lookout, because you got to get the notifications when we bring on this dynamic couple. So
we're excited about it.
We've already taped it. It's already in the can.
Yes, it is.
So we're
know
how
very
good it's going to be.
Yeah.
We're very excited. So look forward to it. We Safehouse. We love you. We love you.
We love you guys.
Peace.